Hey guys. So I feel like it's been a really long time since I've even mentioned The Handmaid's Tale. I think the last time I maybe mentioned it is when I was comparing it to the Vox book. Um, and that still feels like a long time, but it's been a long time since I've talked about like the series, the book. I do have a really old 2019, like when the series first came out, when I first read the book, review on my channel. I will link it down below. If you're just like kind of wondering what my feelings were like about the book, it is old. I feel like I'm a little bit better of a reviewer than back then, but that way you get an idea of kind of how I felt about the book. Anyways, yeah, let's talk about the TV show. I'm not gonna bring up the book too much. Maybe here and there, but I wanted to talk about where the TV show should have ended because I feel like it should have ended a long time ago. I can't think of when I started not really liking the show. I think it was like these last couple of seasons here. Um so the book is very very short. It is 250 pages. So that is what they are working with. And the thing about the book is the ending is very ambiguous. Like, you don't know what happens at the end. And I think you have two types of readers. I think you have one type of reader like me that's like, I thought the ending was great. I did not need more information. I didn't need any more information about the government of Gilead. I did not need any more information about what happens to June. I did not need any more information about anything else. And then you have the reader that's like, give me everything. I need to know everything. What kind of prompted this video was I saw a video about the Game of Thrones spinoffs and how they're kind of ruining that world and stuff because there's a lot of mysteries that still are not answered in the books, because the books aren't finished. So that's kind of how I feel about Handmaid's Tale too, because like when you read the book, like, you know, very basic information. Like, you know that these women were in modern society. In the show, I think it was like 2020. It was when the show came out. So, 2019. I think 2019, 2020. 2019 was the show. The movie and the movie and the book is in the 80s. So you know that these women were from that time period. They were hardworking, trying to support their families and everything like that. And then the world changes to where, oh, your income is now in your well, you're only depending on your significant other's income. That's male. Um, so we have that. Okay, we have that as a base. And then we have the schooling that they go through. Um, and then they become handmaids. That is particularly fine. Like, just having them as that, like having that as like the timeline and the storyline, that is perfectly fine. I don't need to know anything else. I think keeping this actually as basic as possible, like, remains as a dark message all the way through, and then adding more information just gives you like way too much information and it becomes complicated. Um, I feel like what the show does in the first season to add stuff to it, because I think the people that created this show felt like they needed to add stuff. Instead of subtracting stuff from the story, we needed to add more information. So we needed to add in more information about June's mom. Why? I don't know. She literally never comes up in the story at all. I think the only time it's like mentioned in the book is like, oh, look, your mother is in the um camp area. And then it's like, okay, that's kind of dark, but we move on. So actually having it to where we see June's mother's relationship in like the second or third season, I think is what I'm talking about. I didn't need it. I didn't. It wasn't important in the book. It's not important for me to see. Like, and that's kind of how I felt. I felt like we got Serena's backstory, which I didn't ask for. I did not ask for Serena's backstory. I didn't ask, like, I think it's mentioned that she wrote a book about, like, the creation of Gilead. And then she's kind of the creation of Gilead and look like where she is. And Mr. Offred and Serena is a lot older in the books. So I don't think Serena has as much jealousy as she does in the show, because, she's kind of, in the book, she's at an age where she's like, she can't reproduce anyway. I think they're in like their late 50s, early 60s or something like that. So it's not really as big of a thing in the books than it is in the show, because Serena is pretty much the same age. I'm guessing both June and Serena are about probably mid-30s. Like, I don't think they're in their 20s. I think they're probably in their mid-30s. I could be wrong, and they could probably tell me. I can't remember. Ages of characters does not really, like, interest me too much. As long as we don't have any strange age gaps or anything like that, which we really don't have in this show. The books is a little bit creepier because there is a major age gap. Like, if Offred is like in her mid-30s, like late 20s, like early 30s or mid-30s, and they're like in their 60s, that's a little creepy. But like in the show, it's less creepy because of the fact that they're the same age. And I think the show did that on purpose to make it a little less disgusting. Yeah, so we have that. And then it just keeps on going and going and going, and I'm just like, I get it, because the whole journey is June is trying to save her child that's in Gilead. And then we kind of get to that point in the show. Now, why Margaret Atwood wrote, and this is kind of where the Testament comes in, I feel like why the show is so long is because they're getting ready to get the spinoff going for the Testament. Like, they actually have the picture and everything, like, oh yay, and I'm like, I didn't like the Testament because, again, it ruins the ending of the book. Like, not knowing what happens to June is, to me, a better way to end the book. That's just my opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt. So even the second season I feel like is way too much. But the second season kind of starts taking us to Canada. And Canada, to me, was the more interesting part. What her friend, and I want to say his name is Nick, but it's not. Nick is the guy that's, excuse me, that she gets with Gilead. I can't remember. So her husband and her friend And what they're doing in Canada, like, should have been its own separate thing. Um, and I think with the Testaments, we had to show that June finally made it up to Canada and what happened. For just and Handmaid's Reader, I would say just stick with the first season. Like, if you told me that you just watched the first season of The Handmaids and then you're like, okay, I'm good. Good. Like, you saw what you wanted to see. Like, you saw the first book being adapted. It's like if you just saw the movie. You saw what you wanted to see. You saw the first book being adapted. The rest of us saw way too much. And her relationship with Serena is interesting. Like, that's what keeps me watching. But it's getting to the point that that's getting a little too old. I think the actor, like, I don't know who's just enjoying this world, like, way too much to be like, I don't want it to end. And I think that's kind of what the last seasons of, I was almost going to say Hunger Games. I've read way too much Hunger Games, guys. Game of Thrones. Like, everybody was done but George R. R. Martin. Like, George R. R. Martin wanted more. And I think if they had the material for it, I think it would have been fantastic. We're not going to get too deep into that, but that's kind of my feelings surrounding Handmaid's Tale now, is that they could have had a perfect chef's kiss, like maybe 2 seasons. Like, you have one season where it's the book, and then you have a second season where, like, you see Canada, you start seeing Canada, you start seeing some of these women, maybe 3 seasons. You know, you start seeing, like, how this has affected them mentally. And that only would take, like, 2 or 3 seasons, I think. Because you would have to have, like, maybe the second season of, like, her getting all the children put together and some of the women, and have them escape to Gilead, to Canada, and then you would have the Canadian season. And then you still don't know what happened to Offred because she's not part of any of that. She sets everything up and then is part of the women that stay behind. So that would have been a perfect thing. And then we just end in Canada, and then, okay, if we want to bring in the Testaments, we show the baby that June takes up to Canada, which is actually Offred's, Mr. Offred's and Serena's, sorry guys, kid, when it's actually hers and Nick's. But that's besides the point. And we could show her in the last scene. Like, okay. And then, like we could have, like, that, you know, duplicate scene of, okay, the one that's in Gilead and then the one that's in Canada. Okay, and then we could carry on with the Testaments. And then, with that, then we can see what happens to June. So, if you want to see what happens in June, you're watching a whole different series. And then, like, you're now supporting the Testament fans. The Handmaid fans can be like, you know what, I'm good. Where it's like, I'm watching this show because of June being, like, the actress is fantastic. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like the TV show. I think it's great. It's been going on for way too long. And I feel like that's what's happening with a lot of these series. Like, I think this was supposed to be, I wouldn't be surprised, sorry guys, I wouldn't be surprised if this was not supposed to be a mini-series. And then we got, for some reason, we got what we got. And I'm like, okay, I would have been okay with a miniseries. um, I didn't. That's just why The Handmaid's Tale was such a fantastically written book, was because of the fact that we didn't know anything. We were in June's shoes the whole time. And that was the first time I've read a book and I'm like, this makes sense. I don't want to know more than June knows. And then we kind of get that. And it's like, no, don't want to know. Sorry, guys. Now, another way they could have done it is they could have really focused on the underground. So, the first season, June disappears, we get the underground stuff. And we get kind of so it becomes kind of an anthology series where, okay, now we get a new main character that's working from the underground that's helping these people try to get out of Gilead. I think that would have even been cool. I'm just thinking of stuff I actually was interested in. The underground stuff, yes. Whoever was involved in that, yes. Because that there's some people in the government that are against this regime. You just know. Because you always have that in this type of government. You always have somebody that's against it. So it's you always have somebody working as somebody that's I'm against this, what's going on. And then you find underground stuff. This is very much Underground Railroad, stuff like that. So that would have been cool. Because that would have been, and I think what Margaret Atwood's message is everything that happens in this show is real life. Sorry, guys. So, the environmental stuff, we're going through it right now. She wasn't, for somebody that wrote this in the 80s, it's, I think she had a little bit of a crystal ball that, the environment was, I don't know what the conversation was about global warming in the 80s, but it's a big thing, a little bit more of a bigger thing now than it was back then. The birth rate. That's always been, that was something that, I think Reagan's type of thing was really, pushing women back into the home, not having them work, because we were having less kids because, both mommy and daddy were working, so you don't get as much as reproduction. All this stuff that she writes about, she just gives you a very extreme consequence to it. But it all happens. There's areas in the world where they were really watching, okay, are you on birth control? You're supposed to have a kid because of our birth rate. That was actually in there, but it wasn't in the United States. So it's just this whole thing of, everything. So that's the interesting portion of it. And I think that's what they really needed to focus on. And I think showing the camp was interesting. I didn't need to see it personally. But having, showing the extreme consequence, kind of what the theme is. Okay. But it's such a favoritism society, because there's some women that should have been in the camps a long time ago that are not. Like, June is, like, seriously sitting there, like, should have been there a long time ago. Still kicking wherever she kicks. But anyway, that's beside the point. But, like, my whole thing was, like, it's too much. And it depends on, I already kind of know what this last season's going to be, and it's going to be the Testaments. It's going to be her last hurrah, and then probably by the end, I would not be surprised if we do not get that scene with her daughter in Gilead, and then her other daughter in Canada, and then we open up the Testaments, and then the Testament show continues. And I'm just not here for it. I wasn't a Testaments girl. I did not think it needed to be written. I did, and I did like the part with, the aunt. Which is a character in the show, and it is a character in the book. Aunt Lydia, yes. I did like that. And I think it really humanizes that character. And she's already kind of a humanized character. I think Aunt Lydia is, I need to do this to protect myself. And that sounds really, really bad. When you think about it in this context of, like, what she does to these girls. But at the same time, she is in survival mode. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I hope it's good. I don't think it's out yet. I might pop in and out and kind of give a little review of maybe kind of like the end of the season, how I feel about the whole thing after it's done. If I end up watching it, I've been really, really bad about watching live action television. I have been, like, immersed in my anime era. So, we'll see. We'll see kind of where we're at, but right now I'm just kind of like, we'll see. I'm hoping for the best, but I will not be surprised if I get the worst. Like, let me just tell you that. Like, I still have the book. Like, I still have the book that I can just read and, have my ending that I wanted in the first place, and I'm okay with that. But otherwise, you guys have a lovely day. If you want more content like this, like and subscribe. Thursdays is my random chitty chat about anything, and then Sundays I talk about books. And then Magical Readathon is on, so I'll be probably talking about that in a few videos. But otherwise, you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!